evening. Salot in a Dladot. Say hi, say what's up. Look out there. See the throw it in the comments, Nezon de la doge dene sultinina daisy behal to see all over Turtle Island. Gudit and enu. But really only Turtle Island. Kondu hun season dena Gudit and enu. But anyways, welcome. Masi cho dun zinek and ohal hun tadultia si Willis Janvier Hushe in Telas tours in La Loche, Saskatchewan, Clearwater River Dene Nation band member the Heslio and dun zinek Treaty Fort territory ayers in ohal hun tatida natlias Amushja, Saskatchewan, and duna no bagesus ani last week conference nahash Jania full circle MLTC and there's a quasi Baninchurot in English River First Nation. Just to give you a heads up, again a health season. She's making dry meat in the back, so you're gonna get a little bit of this and a little bit of that doing zinike. So make sure you share this video. And banlai tot inayat so denedit I call denayat tilazan denerenio and Salah Maurice and I got net down this, so maybe we're related somehow. I guess that's how Dene people say we're related. But Saquelio zinalzek another la Saque ba 6 by Yeotzi Henny. But Tahal Nas Zeo and um Torliu dene you hal ne yan si so chin ya ne yan nal zik another do bene quill bes cano tori dene han el tene. And like I said again a helt sig another that dollar. So eiga bahal ya iltias on doon zinek and once again it will be in English. One of the things even my next guest is gonna be in English, but you know some people it is not their fault that they don't speak it. Some regions are different dialects, some say different things, same word but different meanings, in different areas. So that's why today it's going to be done in English. And sometimes people get afraid. I ask them, you want to be a guest, and they say, well, I don't speak Dene. I say, it's okay, you're Dene still, right? So just like today, it'll be done in English. Any questions? Don't be shy to throw them in the chat. So with that, let's get started. And Masicho. Hello, Edlanete.
Hello, Willis. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How was your day?
I had a very full day today.
Yeah,
My hu-
busy.
my husband shot a moose yesterday, so busy making a gana all day, and right now we're just smoking it outside in the smokehouse.
Oh,
And
nice. How's the weather up there?
today was really beautiful,
Yeah,
really warm weather.
yeah.
It's such a good day to be indigenous.
Ideni say. Yeah, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Katrina, thank you for being here. You like to be called Katrina or Kat or
Usually people call me Kat.
Cat, eh? Okay, Cat for short. But thank you for joining me here. And we chatted a little bit last week, and you told me, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you keep this way of life strong and where it all started.
Well, right now I'm a mother of three children. I have one boy and two girls. I'm actually married to one of your cousins, long relation through the Tulageurs, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I growing up was kind of two different settings for me. I grew up in here in Pachinak till grade 1, and then we moved to Saskatoon so my mom could further her education, and she got a degree as a teacher. And we lived there until I was in grade 6. But every summer we would my late dad and my mother would take us camping. My grandparents had cabin on the Churchill River. We call it Dedishcha, where
Mm-hmm.
the Majatic River and the Churchill River meet.
Mm-hmm.
So my days of growing up from from the age of 6 years old were basically living on the Churchill River with them. And growing up, I was the only girl in the family. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And there wasn't a lot, like the girls always got left behind kind of thing, eh? So I was more of a daddy's girl, and I think that's where a lot of it was sustained within me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I bugged him to go everywhere with him, and like even to teach us fishing. Sorry, my girl just walked in. And a lot of those practices and being so fortunate to have both grandparents while living that way of life during the summer months when we were off from school, and like we did everything out there. We went swimming, we went fishing, and a lot of the knowledge I sustain now, like making fillets, making a thigh, making dry meat, fixing a moose, even making a fire, like being such a I call it a tomboy. I don't want to label anything, but it was basically wanting to do what the boys did growing up because it seemed so much more fun than being a girl and getting left behind and stuff like that. So it's that it's that family competition where you're growing up with boys,
Mm-hmm.
and that healthy competition. And a lot of my knowledge that I pass down to my family now is from that living that way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we were so fortunate. And like today, I'm like I was telling you, my husband shot a moose yesterday, so we get the treat of having a gun in a few days and having a freezer full of meat. And like with the cost of living nowadays, it's so expensive, and having those little necessities from the skills you retain as a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until about, I'd say, it's trial by error too, right? Like you don't perfect your skills, you're always learning what to do, what not to do. And with making dry meat, it wasn't until I was about 24, 25 that it became something as fun,
Mm-hmm.
problem solving, like that. It's like that bush therapy is what I
Mm-hmm.
like to call it now,
Yeah.
because you have that connection to the animals, to the land, and
Mm-hmm.
you just love that way of life. And I noticed as I grow older, I long for the Churchill living again, like the way I had with my parents and my grandparents. That's something you, as you grow older, you wish it was that way again because it was so much fun and no worries. There was always something to do.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as being bored in the bush. And the other thing too, like living on the Churchill River, you learn how to be in boats. Like us here, we have skiffs and stuff like that. So it's basically retaining that common sense knowledge of being in the bush,
Mm-hmm.
what to do, what not to do, and making sure like when you bring your family there that they're aware of their surroundings, and like just the little things that count so much. And like teaching your kids to also not to be scared of bugs, like showing them the little things, slipping over a rock when you go for walks, and
Mm-hmm.
even swimming, jumping off the boat. And back then, like nowadays they say life jackets, life jackets. We never lived in life jackets back in the day. Like we used to shoot the rapids with my late dad, and I don't ever remember wearing a life jacket. But now, like with me, when I bring my kids, it's like you got to wear your life jacket, you got to wear your life jacket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of good things there you share. What was it like as a kid? I believe you told me it was 6 years old. Did your father and your brothers, did you get right into it, doing, the heavy lifting, or was it small, starting off small for you and making your way to killing small game or something? What was that like?
Well, growing up, when you're basically watching, like you're not supposed to touch the gun, especially 6 years old. So we started off with little things like pellet guns and slingshots, and basically throwing rocks,
Mm-hmm.
killing chickens, until that age where your parents knew that you were a little bit more responsible to handle a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And back then too, like they used to leave their weapons there, and we knew not to touch it. You knew there was respect for the weapon and the things and the life it could bring you to sustaining food and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started handling a weapon, it was from a BB gun, just target shooting and stuff like that, and killing rabbits, chickens, mostly stuff like that. Things that we still do to this day. And then when you get older, you get into the more of the like the 410s. It's just a little downgrade from a shotgun, but it's so much fun. I don't know. It's such a the best de-stressor effort ever. And it wasn't until about maybe 4 years ago I started duck hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And like the laughs, and you're laughing at yourself, and you're trying to shoot ducks that are flying, and it's just so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like I've never done it. I was one of them. We have this duck pass when I was a kid, that we were one of the mutts that had to go run and get the ducks that came down, the retrievers. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty cool. You get to live like that, and you know now you live in the city, right?
No, actually I live back home in Patchnack.
Oh, okay. I thought, yeah, I thought you would mention, but how often do you get out on the Churchill now? Is it something you do, when there's a break, or is it just it just doesn't happen often anymore as it did while you're growing up?
Well, yesterday was kind of a funny story because we go ice fishing just right here. It's about maybe a 5 minute snowmobile ride. It's on the Elacross Lake that connects to the Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
And we were busy fishing there, just looking around. And then my husband, he's like, "Is that a moose?" He said, "Eh?" So I kind of had to walk because it was behind the point. So I walked over to him, and here that moose starts running around now. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "That's a moose," he said, "eh?" So he starts texting all his boys and everything. And he's like, "Should I shoot it?" He said. I was like, "Oh, shoot it." So he went home, he grabbed his gun, went that way. And we're all watching from where we were ice fishing. There was three, four, five, maybe about seven of us out there
Mm-hmm.
fishing, just family. And you could see the moose running in and out of the bush,
Yeah.
and then him taking the shots. And then we couldn't see no more moose running. And then I was thinking, I hope he shot that moose. And then sure enough, like 2 minutes later, a text picture of a moose down came in, and I was so happy because we were kind of running low on moose meat.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the hard work that for the again taste comes
With
from. So
with
it's
lard and salt.
with Lord and salt.
Yeah,
But
that's how I
most
eat it.
most of our camping nowadays takes place on towards the Key Lake mine site on the Key Lake Road. We actually have a cabin there at kilometer 98,
Mm-hmm.
and we go there all year round. Every spring, we go out there a lot in the summertime,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have our fall hunting camp. And then usually once or twice in the wintertime,
Yeah.
usually we have to haul the sled up there, and we got to make the trail down by Skidoo and stay there for a few nights. And
Mm.
bring the kids. Everything is always done by a family affair, so
Yeah.
it's not just one or two of us going. It's always a bunch of us. So it's nice to keep showing the kids, especially, and they never want to get left behind.
Yeah.
So that's one good thing that comes out of it when we do go up there. It's not so much living on the Churchill anymore since my late dad passed away, but it's still sustaining the things and the skills that he taught me and my family and passing it
Hmm.
down to our children. So when they get older and they start having their own families, they'll be the ones making the dry meat and packing their freezers and
Yeah.
cooking the traditional meals that we all love.
You'll be playing bingo, eh? Radio MC, radio bingo for sure. you know, what is it? I see that you said you've got a longing for the land, and you think it's like longing for um, as a child, you're in the inner child in you that misses the Churchill River and that, but now you're doing it on your own. Do you ever get like flashbacks of going back to as a child when you're doing the same things now with your own children? Do you ever have that moment almost like deja vu, or is like that moment of reflection saying, I did this with my dad and now I'm passing this on?
It's quite frequent that those experiences happen with me and my husband, especially with our kids too, because when I think back, I have a lot of good memories, and being family orientated is so important too. That's one thing that was really instilled with me. I was a very hands-on mother, especially when the kids were small, and making sure those experiences were there for them too also. But
Mhm.
that longing of the land is, when you're out there, it's like you're wishing you don't want to come back to civilization kind of thing, eh? Like you kind of plan on, this is where I want to retire when you get to that certain age,
Mhm.
and all those things that come into play, especially with the memories that can be created, but also teaching that way of life, because nowadays it's slowly dying.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that's where I make up more for the loss of my language too also,
Yeah.
like making sure my traditional and cultural practices are still sustained in within me, because like I lost my language. I can understand so much of it, like the basic words, and like when somebody talks I can kind of get drift of what they're talking about, but to speak it is a different thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And a lot of that too, I think, was kind of being a, I don't want to say a city Indian, but I was a city girl growing up.
Mm.
And but even that too, eh, like the education that is so important nowadays.
Yeah.
Just having that urban experience when school was on, and then the parents bringing us into the bush when there was no school. So that's one thing I'm really thankful for.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like not everything is perfect, everything takes work, and especially relationships and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it just helps to build on your relationship building when you're with family too also.
Yeah, a lot of life skills. It sounds like that you've been able to learn out on the land, and that's the way Dene people teach each other. I mean, it's not your fault you lost the language, but I'm sure if you want it, you can get it back. You're surrounded by it there in Pachinak. But how old were you when you first shot your first moose?
I believe it was, I think I was 36 years old. I just gave away my age. That was back in 2019 actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was actually, it was actually just with me and my youngest daughter. I believe she was 6 at that time, 5 or 6 years old. and we were coming back from Key Lake Road, and I was debating whether to leave the cabin that day because it was such a beautiful day, like the best fall day ever, warm. I went out picking berries, cranberries, just by where our cabin is. And I just felt like I didn't want to leave, but I had to work the next day.
Mhm.
So that morning, I ended up packing up just in case we decided to leave. And it was about maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's about a 4.5, maybe sometimes 5, depending on how fast you go, how many stops you make. And so we decided to leave about 3 or 4 o'clock that afternoon. And usually, when you go that way, the cell service is kind of iffy. It's kind of a hit or miss. So my mom was kind of worried. She was kind of trying to con me into staying another night because it was just me and my youngest daughter, and she was worried I might have a flat or something. So I just told her, I said, I'll go slow. I said, I'll make it. If I have trouble, I'll get a hold of my brother. And so that happened. We ended up leaving. And I was going about 70, 80 at the most.
Mhm.
And we passed Pine House. We come to the cut across to Beauval now.
Yeah.
And about 10 kilometers down that road, a bull moose, like I was going slow, 70, 80, a bull moose came right in front of me, just started running. And my daughter in the back seat was just yelling, and her hand was going like this. She's like, Mom, moose. And she was just excited. And so I was telling her, I said, as soon as the moose goes into the ditch, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to shut off the truck. And you have to be very quiet, I said. And she's like, okay, okay. So my gun was already in the front seat on the passenger side. And then that moose ran quite a long ways. And then it went into the ditch kind of on a corner. So I pulled over there, turned off the truck, pulled out the gun, and then shut off the truck, whatever. And then you could hear that moose running away now. Like I couldn't see it. It was in the bush. It was gone. And then you could hear it running away. And then I was listening, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And I was like, holy shit, what do I do? So I let out a cow call, just one cow call. Now I could hear that moose running back to me. And my heart just started pumping. It was like in my mind, I was like swearing to it, like, what do I do? What do I do? Kind of thing. And my gun was out, it was loaded. And then it stopped. I could hear it stop in the tree line. I couldn't see it yet. So I waited a few seconds and I let out another call. Now that moose comes out, I could see its antlers. It was just directly looking at me. And I had my gun in my sights right on it. And I was like, I'll wait till it turns. I was thinking in my head. And then in my mind too, I was like, do I shoot it? I'm by myself kind of thing, eh? Like in the middle of where there's no cell service. And I was like, I have to shoot it. My brother's going to get mad. My husband's going to get mad. So I shot it, one shot, and it just fell down. And like your heart's pumping, your adrenaline's going, like, oh my God, what the hell just happened kind of thing. But it was so much fun. And my daughter at that time, like during the rut, is such a dangerous like situation to be in. Like you don't want to be trailing after a moose with a little girl. And I
Mhm.
pleaded and pleaded with her to stay in the truck, but she would not have it. She would not listen to me. I was like, I'll even buy you a Barbie doll. Like you can stand on top of the truck kind of thing. But no, she wouldn't have it. She was just like
Yeah.
getting mad at me. So I
Yeah.
actually had to haul her in my, I waited about 15 minutes, eh? I
Yeah.
could see where that moose went down, but I couldn't see it. So I had to haul her on my back and taking your time in the bush and making sure you're listening, and if you could hear it, get up, or because
Yeah.
it's so dangerous. And then as soon as we seen it down, I put her back in the truck, and I knew where there was cell service. It was about maybe 10 minutes, 15
Yeah.
minutes down the road. So I
Yeah.
had to turn around. I found cell service, and then I phoned my youngest brother, Josh. And I was like, Josh, I said, I just shot a moose. don't lie. He was just yelling at me on the phone. I was like, for real. So about where I shot that moose from Pachinak would have been maybe an hour and 40 minutes for
Yeah.
him to get there if he was going 100 kilometers an hour. He got there within 45 minutes of me calling him. So
Already on the road.
yeah, so just that like that anticipation and that rush and everything, like that's because he knew I was just with my youngest daughter, and
Yeah.
it was such a good experience too for her, and like especially being a female, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because a lot of my idols too, like my late grandma and yes, who taught me so much, my late grandma George and my grandma Cho and my mom, my aunties, like there's so much knowledge you can learn from female role models too, right? Especially
Mhm.
just being family. And so that was the take of it. And
Yeah.
I actually shot it with my C19. It's a it's a rifle. We're gifted rifles because I'm a member of the Canadian Rangers,
Mhm.
and that was my first moose with that gun. So it was
Mm.
it was quite an experience within itself, but such a good one,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lasting memory.
Yeah, for sure. It's and I thought you would have been maybe a little younger when you said that you were out on the land with your family, your brothers and all that stuff, but I didn't think it was that recent. And I think we talked about this too. You must have, all the Dene people. There's a male role and a female role, and you took part on a lot of you know learning like how to make a gene and dye and all that stuff. Always out on the land, right? And you had to do the hard work too with your family, right? With your dad and your brothers.
Yeah, calling the moose, and like some of my most favorite memories are basically tailing my late dad after he shot a moose. Like he would shoot a moose from right on the skiff, and he's trying to drive the motor and handle a gun and pushing out the boat, like helping him push out the boat. And then when a moose goes down, he's like, and you're only like 11 years old, he's like, put on your rubber boots kind of thing, eh? You run after me kind of thing. And you go into the bush, and there's this like moose laying there, and he finishes it off and kind of
Yeah,
thing, eh? And
yeah.
just the fun experiences that we Dene people have, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's one thing I've never. I always say I left the bush when I was a kid. My cousin and I, we grew up in the bush a bit, and he went one way and I went the other. So it's kind of the end of it for my hunting and all that stuff. But I'm okay with it. And you mentioned you're with the Rangers now. Tell us a bit about how you got into that, there, Katrina or Kat. Sorry.
Well, I've been a part of the Canadian Rangers, I'd say, for maybe 6 years now.
Hmm.
And it first came to play maybe about seven, maybe 8 years ago. I could be wrong. My mother is actually the sergeant on our patrol. We have a sub patrol with Isla Cross.
Yeah.
We're part of the national defense. We also take part in a lot of search and rescue and stuff like that, being trained. And there's a lot of different aspects, a lot of different roles
Hmm.
to play within the Canadian Rangers, but a lot of it has to do with like search and rescue, being out on the land. When we do exercises, before COVID hit, we were doing exercises approximately once in the summer, fall, and a winter exercise. And a lot of it is dealing with compasses. Like you have to go into the technology nowadays with the GPS, but also with just a plain old compass kind of
Oh.
thing, and building camp, making fire. And they give us different scenarios to problem solve.
Hmm.
sometimes the oh, I can't even think right now. The sergeant major, the boss man that comes in from the Canadian Armed Forces, who is the lead ranger man. He'll go hide in the bush, and we have to go find him, and he'll give us like little coordinates here and there, and learning how to use a satellite phone. And we also do gun training because we're gifted a rifle,
Mhm.
and it just so happened that I happened to be the female sharpshooter on our patrol.
Yeah.
So which is something of an accomplishment for me.
Mhm.
The take I get away from that is because when you're growing up, especially with my late dad, I was telling you I was a real tomboy with him. He used to let me shoot his rifle, and just having basic knowledge of the weapon,
Mhm.
and him teaching me how to sight and to mark things with the targets there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think I give a lot of how do you say it? I give a lot of my
Credit.
credit to my late dad
Mhm.
because of that, because of just the basic knowledge and the common sense, and for me being a female sharpshooter.
Mhm.
And one thing that he taught me too was, and I still have a lot of it to this day, is basically you have no fear. That's one thing I noticed about him, was he had no fear for anything,
Mhm.
whatever kind of situations you were in. So you take those little things, and you learn from it as you go. And even to speak in public, or to speak on like your show here, is basically to have no fear, to express your experiences, and to let other people know to also have no fear, but to do things respectfully and
Mhm.
mutually, and working together and networking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what, a lot of your Dene values, they come on the land too, and when I found out about you and your story, and I was like, "Hey man, this is a good story to tell for everybody." Female that is doing a lot of work, to you know, it, sustaining your cultural way of life, that's really important for a lot of young people. We get drawn into the city life. You've been drawn back, just kind of reeled in back into the north now, and growing up in the south, it's very different. It's convenient for me, and it's more work for you, and but it's something you enjoy, and that's how you're able to be a ranger and get called out on the land. So it's very good to see. I hope there's young ladies that watch this and take after you, and maybe they can pick up making dry meat, which you're going to show us here in a bit, and tell us a bit about the dry meat making process there, and hold it up if you will too, if you maybe people will get
I didn't
hungry.
even really finish it yet. A lot of it is smoking right now. The good pieces are smoking right now. I'm actually almost done.
Yeah.
But even that is work within itself. But the what you take from it, and just the taste of it. What we call it gold up here,
Gold.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because it's so rare and kind of hard to find unless you make it yourself.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tell you a little story. I used to laugh at my late grandma. She used to stash her a gana. And I used to wonder why, like, how come this old lady's stashing her a gana? She's so cheap, kind of thing. It wasn't until recently I started doing that.
Yeah.
Now I know why my grandma stashes her a gana.
Oh man, that's funny. It's when you have that moment. I always have that with my mom. My mom would always like, I don't know if you do it, but the ketchup is one thing. We're always wasting ketchup, putting too much or something, right? And I see it now, and now I tell my daughter, right? And I'm like, buy her new shoes. Don't put them on that way. Untie them and tie them up. I didn't do that when I was a kid either, but now we see ourselves doing that. And that's funny, right?
It's always funny when you have those when you're bringing it on to your either yourself or your kids from
Mm.
what you were taught from before, where you used to think like, why is my mom so mean?
Yeah,
Why is my grandma being mean to me, kind of thing.
yeah, that's what it's all about, the lessons that you get to pass on to the young people, and how long does it take you, what you're working on there, again? How long is it gonna take you to finish that one there?
Oh, not long. Won't take that long. I'm making this one more thick. It's kind of used for stewing meat.
Yeah,
The ones smoking right now are the ones that get crispy, and that's the one you eat with lard and salt.
yeah. Do you prefer lard or butter?
I prefer butter.
Butter.
But
Holy,
the
nobody
best
likes lard.
the best one is when you eat the. I usually freeze the moose fat, the raw moose fat,
Yeah.
and then you cut it up and you eat it with your gana with salt. That's the best.
Oh,
Right?
okay, okay,
I gotta
okay.
go check on that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I just want to say it's all about all the questions I have for you. You're very busy there at the moment, and I want to say thank you for joining me and telling us about yourself and what you do. And I hope it helps young ladies want to get out in the land and learn more. And it's pretty cool what you're able to do. So, if you have anything that you want to say, I'll leave it up to you. But if not, I want to thank you. Merci, merci.
Well, I'll leave off with first time you ever do anything, it's not going to be pretty. Even a gana making, fixing fish. But if you put the time and the work and the effort, you eventually you. The goal for me is to basically seek perfection, right?
Hmm.
And to so you could show your kids or your cousins or your brother's girlfriends or stuff like that, eh? And just to just to try it, have no fear and try anything. And it's all about that female empowerment. Don't ever. One thing that I always take away too is anything a man can do, a woman can do better.
Yeah. Don't start fighting here, but you know.
I'll bite you a little bit with that, leaving off with that,
Mhm.
but like women are so powerful and we're the givers of everything, so you just got to keep on giving.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Massino Katrina Morris, salot in a Leon de la, but another day at Layanile Tina Linosa, Nabahara Leon, Massicho.
Thank you too, Willis.
Massi. Alrighty, salot in a kui Katrina Morris, Ulila, Banincheroti, salot in a gane dala, Morris, the enemy da, quite a ways, my grandmother, but kosin salot in a hunlia, Banincherton, and not you seek another as a quailions in Chia another when from the city and back to the land. So do Benenes and Nuni ao Beskana Leon got her own family and don't you seek another few years ago they need Edu and they need again a health sila. Maybe it's an mailing lot but it's always good to see then I can seek another that are willing to share bits in honi that you seek an daisy culture. I know beyatie do dia jahan you ko yans yurit ahola but can other day na yatie nine chonda and I honestly believe that. Hurry ide, just like Big Mac, hurry ide, you're gonna go and get it. Naya tier hurry ide, you're gonna go and get it. So with that, must see choner hosting a salad in a dunes and again halon tadult. Yeah. Thursday did halon tadni dana dliasa. AET, we northern Alberta, so it's in Deneta, high level area. It's in Dene Halyast, so Dre Joe Passion Hulye. Um, TikTok abul ala der dene hand games borot de la TikTok so it abul I reached out to him it iban la tot in ya tiasa because dene South Slavey at hisa so we at Sadit Island ilaza and yeah totina and of course a rilker beatia no hal that isi hulniasi beneridiha. So with that, join us 7 o'clock Thursday evening masi cho salotine this week no baral yon leok ani Monday boni drone de la cole side zine di no nant are nezonte masi cho. Have a good night.